They claim they are defensive. Take a listen.
All training that we do is training for a possible war, but it does give it a different flavor when the pressures are heightened and there's a different bit of intensity as you see, in the conditions around you.
Nuclear threats show that he is begging for war.
President Trump, just hours after the nuclear test, kept open the option of a military strike.
Mr. President, will you attack North Korea?
Peace and security in our world, and it is unacceptable that others financially support this criminal rogue regime. The brutal North Korean regime does not respect its own citizens or the sovereignty of other nations. Our new executive order will cut off sources of revenue that fund North Korea's efforts to develop the deadliest weapons known to humankind. The order enhances the Treasury Department's authorities to target any individual or entity that conducts significant trade in goods, services, or technology with North Korea. And I'm very proud to tell you that, as you may have just heard moments ago, China, their central bank, has told their other banks, that's a massive banking system, to immediately stop doing business with North Korea.
We begin with that breaking news. Japanese television running urgent warnings at this hour after first reporting another missile launch from North Korea. Japanese TV reporting the missile has passed over Japanese airspace. Several population centers have been warned. The launch is yet another provocative move on the part of North Korea. So let's get right to ABC's David Curley following late developments from Washington. David?
Good evening, David. Very provocative. This missile traveled 2,300 miles and right over one of Japan's main islands.
It is the second North Korean missile to fly over Japan in the past month, an extremely aggressive move by Kim Jong-un. In Japan, alarms blaring, according to the Japanese media, which says the missile was launched near Pyongyang, passing over the Japanese island of Hokkaido, landing in the Pacific Ocean. According to the Japanese broadcaster NHK, no attempt was made to shoot down the missile. Just this afternoon, President Trump speaking aboard Air Force One, saying he's working with the Chinese on pressuring North Korea and trying to reassure Americans.
But believe me, the people of this country will be very, very safe.
The Pentagon says initial assessments suggest this was an intermediate range missile, not an intercontinental missile, which could reach the United States. Today's launch coming just days after the UN passed additional sanctions against North Korea. The launch comes less than 2 weeks after North Korea tested what it says is a hydrogen bomb, which can be mounted on an intercontinental ballistic missile, its sixth and most powerful nuclear test.
Story this lunchtime. President Trump has issued his strongest warning yet to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at his first address to the UN General Assembly. Calling him by the nickname Rocket Man on the global stage, Trump said North Korea's nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles are a threat to the entire world. He also said North Korea would be wiped off the map if it attacked the US or its allies. Park Hee-jun starts us off.
Leaders from 193 member states gathered at the UN's New York headquarters to address several ongoing international crises, including the Rohingya crisis, the civil war in Syria, climate change, and of course, North Korea's continual nuclear and missile provocations. The highlight was, as expected, U.S. President Donald Trump's keynote speech at his first appearance at a General Assembly session since his inauguration in January. In a wide-ranging speech where he hit out at Iran and Venezuela, President Trump reserved his sternest words for the leadership in Pyongyang. He said that, if necessary, the U.S. would totally destroy North Korea to defend itself and its allies.
The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready willing and able. But hopefully, this will not be necessary.
He went on to emphasize the importance of UN member nations working together to isolate the Kim Jong-un regime. President Trump also thanked members of the UN Security Council, specifically China and Russia, for their votes in favor of the toughest ever UN resolution on Pyongyang for its most recent nuclear test. Although Pyongyang will have heard President Trump's comments loud and clear, the North Korean diplomats in New York weren't in the room to hear them as the North's UN ambassador left his seat prior to Trump's arrival. Following the speech, South Korea's presidential office issued a statement saying it's evident the new U.S. administration sees the North Korean nuclear issue as highly important. The top office also said Trump's remarks confirmed that the strongest possible sanctions are the only way to denuclearize the rogue regime.
U.S. and South Korea are making absolutely sure that North Korea is aware of the kind of firepower they possess. There has been another demonstration just miles from northern soil. Senior Foreign Affairs correspondent Greg Palcott has some amazing images tonight from Seoul, South Korea.
Due to the Asian time difference, most in Seoul, South Korea probably missed President Trump's strong pledge at the UN to destroy North Korea if it threatens its nukes. One South Korean analyst did tell us they were strong words and that Trump was playing a game of diplomatic chicken. In the North Korean capital of Pyongyang, the lights were no doubt burning late. Here's how one analyst imagines Kim Jong-un's take on President Trump's rhetoric.
I bet you, as we speak, in Pyongyang, in North Korea, they're sitting around poring over Donald Trump's statements, trying to analyze, what does it mean? Is this guy nuts, or is he really going to do this?
There is a lot of talk about possible war. In South Korea, they are practicing at it, just in case. U.S. and South Korean forces taking over a mock town, but this is an exercise with a difference. Just 12 miles away, the heavily fortified DMZ. Beyond that, North Korea. These troops are some of the most forward deployed in the region. If North Korea invaded or vice versa, these U.S. and South Korean forces would be at the tip of the spear. They're already doing maneuvers with North Korean artillery positioned dangerously nearby. The aim of the mission is to make sure U.S. and South Korean military can work and fight together, and the Yanks can get used to the tough Korean terrain. The regime of Kim Jong-un calls these drills invasion exercises, and it drives him crazy. That's probably another reason why the U.S. military keeps doing them.
All training that we do is training for a possible war, but it does give it a different flavor when the pressures are heightened and there's a different bit of intensity as you see, in the conditions around you.
No one on the ground here thinks the military option will be an easy or a preferable one. They're hoping that even a rough form of diplomacy will come through in the end. Brett.
Greg Palcott in Seoul, South Korea. Greg, thanks.
Now, following on the heels of President Trump's call for a sharp increase in military spending to deal with threats like North Korea, the U.S. Senate has approved a mammoth defense policy bill for 2018. The bill authorizes the Pentagon's budget for next year and sets guidelines on how the money is spent. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
The U.S. Senate has overwhelmingly passed a roughly $700 billion defense policy bill for the next fiscal year, backing President Trump's call for a bigger and stronger military. The amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, which authorizes an $81 billion on-year increase in defense budget, was passed with 89 votes in favor and just 8 votes against. The legislation includes an additional $8.5 billion allocation for the Missile Defense Agency to strengthen missile defense. It also includes the Pentagon's pledges to defend the Korean Peninsula through the deployment of the THAAD anti-missile system and a nuclear umbrella. In addition, the bill lays out Washington's plan to enhance its extended deterrence over its allies in the Asia-Pacific region, including South Korea and Japan, by mobilizing all military capabilities, including nuclear and conventional.